we are attempting to recreate this mud map design for the front garden of a site and do it in CAD, in landscape CAD in gCADPlus. One of the most difficult concepts to come to terms with when you are moving from hand drafting to CAD drafting is we throw away our scale rulers, and everything that we draw in our design here on the right hand side is drawn full size. So if I come across here and just zoom in, this little line, we might start, say, at this point here, and we need to draw a line 3750 millimeters. We happen to be working in the metric environment here, but the same applies when you're working in the US imperial environment. So we're going to draw a line across here, 3750 units long. So it doesn't draw it straight away in millimeters. We can put some sort of linear dimension on the line at a later stage, but I digress. Let's come back in here, and we also don't have to worry about where we put it or how big the design is. We can start small and the design can get larger and larger. So you're looking at the actual site. So to draw our first line, come to draw and line, and we'll just click randomly at any point here. Now we want this line to be perfectly horizontal. The easiest way to achieve that is to come to the status line at the bottom of the screen and put polar on. What that means is that I can, as I swing my mouse around, you can see I can lock in quite easily into the horizontal plane. I could do the same to the vertical and also go at 45 degrees. You can see that dotted line extending. So you've got easy control. You don't have to worry about the angle at this stage. So I'm now pointing in the direction that I want to go in, and we see from our mud map how we've measured this line at 3750, and the number appears down in what's called the command line area at the bottom of the screen, and if I just hit enter, it's going to ask me for the next point. At this point we'll just exit from there, and we zoom in with the wheel of the mouse, and I can pan by holding the middle wheel down. And what I'd like you to do is get into the habit of checking yourself quickly and easily. So if we select that line and look over here in the properties box, we can see that the length of this line is 3750 and its angle is 0. So it's a horizontal line and it represents the actual distance in that site. When we measure that particular line, we also got a little handle in the middle, so that would help us put a symbol for a window down and center it at that point. But we're confident now that we're in the right environment, we're drawing full size, we're not going to worry about scale rulers, but the first line is in and we've checked it and it's appropriate. Now the next line is going to go in from the end of the one we've just drawn and go vertically up. So you can right click and up pops the last commands used, and line was our last command. And what we want to do is to jump to the end of that line, and jumping to control points on a line is done with what's called OSNAP settings. And this little magnet, click on that, that pops up our drafting settings. So we want to turn this object snap on, and we want to set it, for the moment, we want to set it at endpoint, and we'll say, okay. Don't be tempted to pick select all, because then you'll find your cursor jumping all over the place trying to find something that works. So we'll say okay. So polar tracking is now on. We'll right click and repeat the line command. Now when we creep up on the end of that line, it should jump, and it does. Polar's on, so we can now head in that direction, which will be 1750, and we'll hit enter. Again, I could check it if needs be. Maybe we'll do that. Select 1750 is the length and the angle is 90. So we can move things down a little to get out of the way of the O-snap tool. I'll leave that floating. Notice that it's showing a little box around end point. And I'll come over here. We'll zoom out just a little and see if we can continue on. So we've gone up 1750. We need to put another line horizontally measuring 2 meters. So again, right click, repeat line. First point will be here, making sure you just observe the cursor, make sure it is horizontal, and this one is 2 meters. And we'll hit enter, and the next point we can continue on. It's actually going to go 1750 down because that's going to line up there. We'll deal with drawing the veranda area later. So you, of course, are not reliant on what I'm doing, which is to check measurements from here. You'll have that little mud map on the desk near you. So we come back here again. We can now see that the line will start from the bottom point there, and we'll go across 5230. 5.32 meters or 5,230 millimeters. So can you see we're starting to make progress? For the moment, I'll click exit because we're confident we can continue on. You've done a little bit of work, so try and get into the habit of coming up and picking the Save File button, and that will be saved, you remember, in this case, in the installation of gCADPlus went automatically into the OneDrive folder. So I'll come back over here now and zoom out. Now, we don't have a distance here. We simply have the wall of the dwelling is just going to extend along there. We don't know how long that will be. What we do know is there will be an offset to the boundary here of 80 millimeters. So we can just do a random line. So we come back over here, not a random line, but a random distance, and just move up roughly like so to continue the walls of the, so that'll be some rather obscure distance, 3978.708. So in a sense, that's an arbitrary distance. So let's recap. I'll minimize this window here and I'll maximize. So this is now the environment that you will see, and you'll have the mud map with design notes on it in front of you. So to recap, we're in this drawing area or drafting editor, and it's a space called model space. You might have noticed if we picked a line, since we had set a layer in the very first movie in this series to everything that we draw has gone on a layer called hardscape, and it's in a space here called model space. We have other spaces, and we can set up another one by going format and layout, and we'll just pick one on, let's say, the most common drafting sheet that I would use would be an A1, and we'll put it in landscape view and we'll OK it. Now notice down here, just above the command line area, we've got a layout. So if I zoom extents, now here's a here's a view of the design, and you can see there's our first line, second line, third, fourth, and so on. So that represents now the front footprint, if you like, of the house. We have to deal with some other issues, but so we have two spaces at the moment in this design, our model space and our layout. So you do 90.9% of your drafting work in model space and only worry about layout space and scale at this point. So we can click, it's gCADPlus has automatically set what's called a floating viewport around that layout, and it's given us a view scale, and I could, let's make it just for the sake of argument, and you'll see what happens. I'll make the view scale 100, and there, that's more like what you would see in the design, because we're going to put a path and a front entrance and some planting everywhere here. So we would be working as a scale. So we only worry about scale when we present the design, and here it's a view scale of 100. We could fix that if we like, because one of the questions we're always asked at this stage, well, how do I print to scale? Well, you set your scale with that floating viewport and then print it 1 equals 1, and whatever prints out will be at that nominated scale. But most of our drafting, we won't come back to that layout for some considerable time. So we've progressed along in converting that mud map into our first landscape CAD drawing. Once again, keep on that habit of saving. So it's being saved in the OneDrive folder, and the previous version of this is now a backup file. So we've got several files in our OneDrive directory, the latest version, the penultimate version, and there's even an automatic save version. So there are 3 versions of this design. You may wonder why I emphasize saving drawings and knowing where they're going and looking after them. These are in the jobs folder. Remember, in 2025 in a project called Church Street. So we're very confident of where we are, and we're drawing full size. It's as though we're looking at this, we're hovering over the site and we're looking down on the footprint of the house, and everything is full size. We can use a measurement tool up here, and we can measure from here across to there, and that gives us 5230 exactly as we have drawn. That's enough for the moment, I think.